Hey, as long as you're the first one here, how are things going with the class and with whatever else you got going on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, Destiny.
Hi.
I was just asking Lena, I'm going to ask you the same question. How are things?
All right.
Yeah, that was almost convincing.
I
Are you feeling like I put up another post for the AP prep stuff? Are you feeling like you're starting to get a handle around what that's going to look like and you can prepare for it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Um, so the post that I put up today has to do with the rhetorical analysis essay, which I'm being told is going to be the focus of the exam. And what I'm going to do is on Friday, uh, go over the highlights from that and then give a sample prompt to practice on for next week. Hi, Deanna.
Hi, Dr. Preston.
How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm slightly curious. Are any of you in touch with people who are not on the Zoom calls? Are they doing okay? Are they looking in on the blog? What's happening? Do you know?
For me personally, not really. I haven't really kept up with too many people besides the ones that are usually like on like Zooms with like are in our classes.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because as a teacher, I always, we live in a fairly small community, at least compared to where I'm from in Los Angeles. And at school, I assume that most everybody knows most everybody else and keeps in touch. But what I've been learning over the time we've been out is that a lot of people aren't keeping in touch, except for Lily, because she knows everybody. Can you hear me, Lily?
Huh?
Well, that was a flashback to like right there in 619. Hi, Emma.
Literally, like I guess say
Hello.
I talk to a lot of people in band and stuff, but I don't keep in touch with anybody. I only text two people.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know I have one friend that's in your class in your regular English class. His name's Ulysses. He's really tall.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I talked to him, I keep telling him why don't you go to the Zoom meetings? And he was like, I don't know. He's gonna tell me oh, where have you been? And I'm like, so?
Ah, well, I miss
So
him.
yeah.
Tell him I said hi.
All right.
He's a good guy. Um, when you said band, you reminded me a lot of my friends who are musicians are playing together virtually online. Is any of the band doing any of that?
She's looking into that right now, but only half the band is responding to all the text messages. But
Ooh, that's
yeah,
rough.
she was saying she wants us to take little clips of ourselves playing, and she wants to put this whole big thing together.
Well, that'd be fun. Hey, speaking
Yeah.
of which, did you guys see my post yesterday? I got a wild hair idea after we got off the Zoom call. Did anybody see what I wrote about the book idea?
Yes.
What do you think?
That was actually a pretty good idea. I never thought about it.
I think right now everybody's so busy just dealing and coping that they're forgetting that every single one of you has an amazingly interesting and unique perspective on all of this. If for no other reason, then you are the only person in the room where you are right now. And you're the only person who's dealing with whatever you're dealing with. So that might mean stuff with family. That might mean, I kind of put up a list that was just like a 30-second brainstorm, but I really think that we have a meaningful opportunity to do something that nobody ever thought of. And you get to be the co-author of a book for not doing all that much, except for just sharing your life, and I'll help you edit it. So if anybody's interested in that, just just write some stuff. It could even be one of your journal topics and send it to me in an email, and let's see what we wind up with, if you're interested.
Oh, I just read it right now. That sounds really cool.
And what do you think about the title?
So I think I like the title. Even if it's cheesy, I think it's cool.
Well, if you haven't noticed, in our society, cheesy sells.
Yeah.
It's an attention-getting kind of thing. And I thought, they're either going to think this is really cool or they're going to tell me this is really dorky.
But I think that's what makes it cool.
Well, thank you. How like me? Um, but even if it's dorky, it's something that I think I really want to push because so many of you are good writers, and you have your blogs now, and you can share those with whomever you want. Um, but still, so often, a lot of your best talent goes unnoticed. And I would love to take this opportunity, especially because the people who have been meeting and doing work on their blogs and seeing the recordings have shown such character and such grace through all of this. Um, you all know me well enough by now to know that I wouldn't be saying these things if they weren't absolutely true. And life isn't easy for a lot of us when there's not a pandemic. So the fact that people are still rising to the occasion and showing their real colors during these kinds of times, well, those are voices that I think people are going to want to hear from. So I'm going to nudge you. Send me something, and then let's see what it looks like, and we'll go from there. Deal?
Sounds good.
Oh, and by the way, if you do send something, I'll just go ahead and count that as your final project. If that's something that we're going to collaborate on in a meaningful way, that's going to be one option. Your big question and however we do that will be another option. And then I'll have a final essay just to wrap up all of this madness. And the reason I'm doing that isn't because I'm looking to make it more complicated for people to get a good grade. Obviously, that's off the table. What I'm really looking for is, number one, giving people opportunity to get an A. I would love to show up and say, you earned an A, you earned an A, yep, and here's why, to anyone who asks me. But the second thing is, again, I keep coming back to this, I know, but I'm going to say it one more time, especially for people who are watching this on the recording. Everyone's expecting you to like be bummed out and miserable and just go piss off and watch Netflix and play video games. They don't expect what we're doing. And by participating in something that no one's paying you for, no one's threatening to punish you that I know of anyway, you're really showing your character. And that's like worth more than anything. So with all that being said, does anybody have any questions for me about yesterday's meeting before I launch into figuring out the essay with you?
Nope.
I have a question about the this project that we're gonna do this semester.
Sure.
Since it's gonna be like a book like, will we each have different chapters of ourselves or
That was kind of the way I imagined it, yeah.
okay.
And what I was thinking was, this is all off the top of my head, so this is just what's coming up in my imagination. If anybody has a better idea, the fun part of being a co-author is someone going, hey, how about we do this? And I go, ooh, that's even better.
Okay.
But what if we did it like there were sections of the book, like one section was dealing with stress or grief or boredom or something that we had to like go through around this. Another section was like families, how we relate to being at home and being with people that we see a lot, but we don't really sink in with and spend this much time with. Or another section is like the things that we learned or did because we don't ordinarily have time to do those kinds of things or made.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I said, like, I'm kind of curious to see what we come up with, because this is the kind of project that's going to write itself. These are just kind of guesses I have, but I would love for everybody to have their own section. And, the fun part for me is imagining the cover and saying, how like when you have the title and you got the author,
Mm-hmm.
having like 30 names.
That sounds cool. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. All right. Anything else?
Dr. Preston, so when we write our stories, do we write it in sections already, or is that like later where we like do that kind of stuff?
I'm going to make this so simple and fun. Do your thing. However it shows up for you in your head, just barf it onto the screen, and then we'll take a look at it together and see what we've got.
And how long can it be, or how short?
Oh, you know me. Make it as long as you need to communicate what's important to you. And for this round, for like a first draft, I always think like, don't cut it off or worry about editing it. Just,
Okay.
just let it be its own raw self, and we'll figure out. I may have questions that you may add to it, or I may say, wow, you know what, you nailed it right here. Is there really any reason for the rest of it? I don't know yet. Is the
Okay.
Yeah.
Just do your
Thank
thing.
you.
Yeah. I mean, it's very rare that I have an opportunity to legitimately, for all the right reasons, say the whole point to this is be you. That's going to be so fun. Man, that smile is making my day, Lily. Any day I can make a student that happy.
I'm like,
do
I'm
something.
like actually so excited for it because like it's gonna be like really unique and
Me
everything.
too.
Like, yeah.
That's cool. And go figure, if somebody would have said to you at the beginning of the year, all right, the biggest smile you're going to have is a class that you don't have to take during a disease where you can't leave your house. What? That makes no sense. So I'm glad you're on board. Let's see. So, all right. So yesterday we started talking about how to build this essay. And after we got off the call, it occurred to me that there's another way to go about this. You know, one way that I talked about was starting to think about the theme and the techniques. Okay, but what if you start right now, and I want to do a little mini exercise, and if you have something to write with or type on nearby, just write something that pops into your head that was fun or important or interesting to you about the book. And I'll give you a minute to do that. Go ahead. And when anybody's got a good one, go ahead and let me know. We're going to play together. Has anybody got one?
Can I go first or?
Yeah, please. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share the screen, and I'll type while you're dictating. So can you all see that now?
Mhm.
Okay. Go for it.
Okay. Mine's a bit sad, but it's about how the world itself is different, dark and gloomy.
Did I capture that right?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. I mean, what a compelling opening, right? Um, say a little bit more about that. What is it about that world that gets your attention and makes you feel that way?
Just about how it there was this one part where Mildred was overdosing and she was to the point of kind of like dying. And when was it the doctors came over, and how they said that almost every night someone tries to kill themselves.
Okay. So I never could have predicted this. We didn't prepare this, right, Lena?
Hmm.
This is like a magic trick to me because I love what you've done here. what I was wondering is if we just started with an idea that was important to us, if we couldn't wind up thinking about all the things we need to think about. So when I see this, where I go in my mind is, first of all, what a great first sentence for an essay. I mean, like the classic cliche of a story is, it was a dark and stormy night, right?
Hmm.
So, okay, here we are. And in that environment, life has to find a way, whether it's a virus or a human being. Uh, our goal is to live and be us. If things are dark and gloomy, that's like forcing it down on you. And as a person, you're going to need to push back against that somehow, which sets up Montag really kind of exploring in his own self, what's important to me. Is it love? Is it knowledge? Is it wisdom? And it gets us right into one of the major themes of the book, which is self-determination. And we could also take it, like Deanna was saying yesterday, that it's kind of man versus society, man versus that world that's so dark and gloomy. Now, one of the things that you said about Mildred, and the reason I put that sentence there as well, is so that's like, if I'm looking at this as your opener, and then your thesis statement has to do with Montag's self-determination as a theme of the book, or the conflict of man versus society, well, that raises the question, okay, how are you going to support that? Well, you're going to need 2 to 4 pieces of evidence that you can build body paragraphs around to really bring the reader into your thinking. That scene with Mildred is certainly a good candidate. And now, if you know that framework, you can be hunting for other candidates. Like, can you think of anything else off the top of your head that would help support that whole idea? Can anyone else think of something for Lena?
I'm not sure if like, oh wait, I think, oh never mind. So I remember, like, I guess it's more like cold-hearted, and like I guess it goes with like the dark gloomy theme. But like when I think it was Montag and Faber, I can't remember, but like they were trying to frame the firefighters and like were planning to like put books in their houses and like burn it,
Mhm.
and like they were framing them. Like I don't know if like that like connects to it.
I put destruction there because it seemed like whenever anybody set a fire, it was destroying things, right? That's why at the end it was so different for Montag to see that campfire and feel like it was warming and illuminating, because every time he thought about fire, whether he was setting it, whether the other firemen were getting framed, whether the mechanical hound was getting torched, um, it was pretty awful. So that was a good point. Anybody else with a third one for Lena?
The lack of knowledge throughout the book. Like everybody was pretty much robotic and nobody had their own thoughts or opinions. They were just all uniformed.
Yeah, and what I started writing as you were talking, Ray, I think that's brilliant. When we talk about the Enlightenment, it's we associate, like the comic strip, the light bulb comes on over somebody's head, that's them getting knowledge or an idea. So when, Lena, you say that the world of Fahrenheit is dark and gloomy, darkness is associated with ignorance, and illumination or enlightenment is associated with self-awareness or knowledge. Now, Lena, I don't want to box you into a corner. You don't have to take any of these ideas. But the reason that I wanted to start this conversation in this way today was because a lot of the time when we write essays, we have to respond to a specific prompt in a specific way. And because of that, we get boxed into a bit of a corner. And Lena, I remember one of the very first things, this is going to surprise you, but one of the very first things you said to me back in the fall was that you like to do things in a different way that expresses you. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Does it surprise you that I remember that conversation?
Yeah, pretty. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, well, I listen and I remember. So this might fit what you're doing. It might not. But the exciting thing to me is, instead of responding to that kind of a prompt with all those keywords in a one size fits all, doing the essay this way lets you start with an idea and then fill in what you need. Could be the theme, could be Bradbury's techniques, could be scenes or dialogue, but this gets to now be all about what you think is important to share with your reader. So thanks for starting us off with that. Does anybody else want to share the idea that they came up with?
I mean, it's kind of similar to Lena's, but like for me, like one part that I really liked about the book was like the connections like between the dystopian society that was created in the novel to like our present day reality.
Ah,
Yeah.
now I thought I would even play with that and take it a step further, because Fahrenheit 451 is already dystopian. And you can imagine people living in the 50s and going, ew.
Mhm.
I wonder if our world is even worse. I mean,
I feel like it's getting there.
because if I was going to write today a novel that was a warning to people now about the future, I would definitely make it more extreme. Do you know that there's, is anybody taking a test on Zoom and having it proctored?
Like, what does that mean?
Proctored means supervised.
Oh yeah. Well, going to.
Are you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's creepy. You know, there are companies now that work in collaboration with that software, and basically what they do is they piggyback on it so that, like I just read an article this morning about a university, I think it was Arizona, and somebody was like going online, and all of a sudden there's this Russian guy on a screen half a world away who needs access to his computer and everything on it, and measures his eyeball time and has him point the camera around his room and all that kind of stuff. I compare that with Fahrenheit 451. I'd rather be in Fahrenheit 451. So, all right, back to your point, Deanna. We are living in a dystopian version of Fahrenheit 451. First of all, I want to check in with you because I sort of hijacked that. Does that accurately capture what you wanted to say?
Yeah, I wanted to say like we're almost becoming it, and that's what's scary and like mind-boggling to me.
Okay. So I like that phrase, so I'm going to jot that down. It's mind-boggling that Ray Bradbury was so right about so many things in the future, and we are managing to get it all wrong.
Yep.
Okay. So, and that obviously is a wonderful segue into, all right, so give me some examples about what he's getting right and what we're getting wrong. And that's what I kind of mean about sometimes pieces just tend to write themselves. And what's fun for me now is to think about, as we move forward in the rest of the course, the kinds of things that we get to do together really have to do with the art of writing, which I don't get normally to explore in classes that are like Time by the Bell and So Busy Worky and all that kind of stuff. But you see how you can just let your mind off the leash and write the rest of that essay and see where you're at the end of the first draft. Does that feel good to you?
Yep.
All right. We got time for one more example. Does anybody else want to play? Oh, who haven't I heard from? Destiny?
For me, one thing that really stood out was that metaphor about the mirror. And then what that just got me thinking about like a person's own self-identity, how we usually struggle to find it. And I feel like Fahrenheit 451 was just this whole journey of someone finally finding their self-identification.
Yeah, really well said. So I'm just going to jot down a couple of key words. The mirror, the journey. You know, as I'm thinking this, and Destiny, I'm looking at the time, and I know that we don't have that much longer on my Zoom call, but what I'm thinking is you can make a wonderful metaphor out of people having to go far to find what they've had all along. And one of the things that's really challenging to people right now at this moment with the quarantine is that they can't get away from themselves. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, they're
Like a lot-
kind of just stuck with their own thoughts and everything.
Yeah, like a lot of people like to travel or get away or otherwise distract themselves because they feel like if things are different, then they won't have to face what they're running from.
Hmm.
Do you guys remember Waldo Emerson we read on self-reliance in the fall?
Yeah.
Mhm.
One of the things he said about travel, I love this quote, is you take the monster with you. And when you think about that, it's kind of profound. So if I think, you know, the journey, there's almost something that I want to say about home there. Because when Montag's house went up, it didn't seem like he was homeless. It almost felt like he was free. Did you guys get that impression?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that in those objects, the mirror, well, journey is a process, but the mirror, the journey home, you've got the ingredients as well. I really want to make sure before, and I'm going to stop the screen share for a moment. Before we head out, I want to know if you all have any questions about writing this essay, for starters, because I asked that it was done by Friday, which is the day after tomorrow. I figured that doing it free form would mean you wouldn't need a whole lot of time and it wouldn't drag on. You feel like this is something you can do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, like, for me, it's kind of like hard because I missed like a lot of calls, so I have to like catch up on the book because like the last thing I remember was when they were framing the firefighters.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you've got a few pages to go, but you know what? You've also got some wonderful people on here. You know, badger Ulysses to read the end and make sure he teaches you about it. I don't know. I want to make it as easy as possible. So tell you what, if you even skim it and you have questions and you can't reach one of these fine people, send me an email and ask me anything you want and I'll help you out. Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay. This is as full service as I could possibly be. I really want to win this with you all. All right. Does anybody else have any questions?
Can I make my grandma write my essay for me?
I'll say you can make her write it with you. Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too.
I had to sneak over here.
Yeah. We're just
So-
playing cards.
Are you winning?
No.
No.
How can you both not be winning?
Well, he's winning me,
Yeah.
but I taught him this game and now he's beating me down.
That's how I do every year. The students become the masters.
Right?
Well, you did something right. Ray's a good guy.
Yes, he's a good kid. Very proud of him.
Well, good reason.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. And Ray, you got to give your grandmother credit. If she helps you, you got to cite your sources.
Right?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Have a great day.
Thank you.
I'll
You
be
too. And on that happy note, you all, we're out, and I'll see you tomorrow. Email if you got any questions, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Bye, Mr.
Bye.
Preston.
Bye.
Bye, Dr. Preston.